I'd like to thank United Board for the chance to really just share my thoughts about how higher ed should move forward in light of the pandemic. These thoughts were my thoughts in 2017 when I was at Cambridge for my Sunday afternoon musings in a coffee shop. Back then, I called it robust universities, but I think in light of the current situation, it is more apt to use the word resilience. Where are we now? We need to look at pre-COVID situation. Modern higher education is described as being global, competitive, and should possess high impact to society. We have a highly competitive market now with our very good students having the chance to study abroad. Public higher ed has been struggling with declining government financial support and therefore has the pressure to prove its value to society, especially with the rising cost of research. There's also this dilemma that has appeared in the last 2 years where universities will need to defend the value of a diploma versus certificates when companies as big as Google say, we just need the skills, we really don't need the degrees. When the pandemic came, everyone had to shift to emergency online learning, and that meant struggling for devices, for internet access. We were on lockdown, so there were no face-to-face operations. There was a big health risk for the community because it's a very contagious disease. And of course, there's increased financial risk because we really don't know if the students are going to return the next semester. Right now, we are faced with post-2020 situation. Our reopening issues. Do we reopen? If we reopen, how do we reopen? And when do we reopen? There's a big pressure in the US for them to open in the fall of 2020, face-to-face modality, or should it be spring of 2021? There's a scenario where parents do not want their kids to go back to school. Will we do blended? Will we do face-to-face? Will we do online? Right now, there's a very strong agreement that it has to be online. In addition, who are our students? Will the international students be able to return or even stay again in the context of the US? Can they stay if they're only taking pure online classes? In the context of a country where you have a lot of students coming from the provinces going to the cities, will these students still want to go to the cities to study, or will they opt to just stay where they are? How do we proceed with admissions? In the US, it has become test option guidelines, meaning no SATs anymore. How will we administer admission exams to our incoming freshmen where the modality, at least in the Philippines, is for them to physically take the exams? How do we deliver student services? We all know that learning is a collaborative and social process, and how do we do that online? Foremost also will be campus life. We know that as when we were in college many years ago, we had a lot of fun being physically on campus with all our activities. How do we do that now? I propose a resilient university that's enabled by technology. I define resilience very loosely as a capability of an organization to withstand both internal and external shocks and to continue to operate, even thrive under difficult conditions. I highlight the word ability because it means it is a skill anybody can possess, the quality of being resilient. It's not something exclusive to a particular set of schools. It is for everybody. But before I proceed to digital transformation, I would like to first differentiate digitization and digitalization. So digitization is converting analog into digital. If you have a physical book, then if you convert that to an ebook, then you have digitized the book. Then you move on to digitalization, which is actually the capability to manipulate digital content. So if I annotate that ebook and I share it with a research colleague, then that's part of digitalization. And using all of these tools to be able to perform that function. Digital transformation is leaps and bounds over digitization and digitalization because it takes a look at all units of an organization, identifies their functions, provides support so that they can effectively deliver all of these services, and or even provide more, create opportunities and value. So the attributes of a resilient organization is, number one, it has to be tech-enabled. And you see later on why it has to be tech-enabled. Technology allows that institution to be able to provide efficient services, to be able to scale very quickly as well. So if I want to open on the campus 100 kilometers away, if I have my structure to be able to do enrollment, admissions, payroll, for HR, it should be very easy for me to do that. It's so easy to scale my services. And again, that helps support the creation of opportunities. Because we're talking about information systems, it has to be human-centric, which means that you have to take a look at the value that it provides to your customer or your user. In this case, primarily our students. Long ago, we take a look at the functionalities of a finance office or of enrollment and try to see that from the perspective of the registrar's office. That's not how it should be anymore. All of these provide services to the student, and therefore the student should be the center of the design. Next, it has to have iterative improvement institutionalized into that institution. What does it mean? It really just means having the data to be able to think about where you are now and how you are meeting your targets. You cannot evaluate if you don't have the information, and we know that digital transformation can provide us with this data very quickly, therefore leading to better decisions. Last, a resilient organization is innovative. It should be able to create opportunities because that's the lifeline to growth. I follow the 80-20 principle. 80% of the efforts of an organization should be towards efficiency of operations, but there has to be some resources left for innovation. What does it mean? It means that you have a think tank, a group of people who understand technology, who understand the landscape and terrain of your industry, in this case, education, and would have the playfulness to think about what if we do it this way? And then think about it very scientifically, meaning they think about the targets, they think about possible measures, and maybe try to make recommendations for our institution to do it. These 3Ds: try resilient, higher education, and digital transformation. The demand for accurate data at any time, the design of systems from a human-centric standpoint, and the delivery of efficient and scalable services to stakeholders. Here I placed a university called University of St. James, which is fictitious. If this is familiar, then it is fictitious in my head. So it's a private higher education with a population of 8,000 students and 1,000 teachers. It offers programs for business and science and technology. Its current systems are an LMS and for its financials and accounting unit. The mission vision of St. James is to offer holistic education. The pandemic hit, it had to do online teaching, it had to contend itself with virtual internships, limited virtual student services, and some research dissemination being conducted online by the researchers. Seeing this, the president said, how do we move forward? And how will they move forward? First is they have to measure where they are. The next is to identify bottlenecks and choke points, challenges, and then decide how they wish to proceed. Looking at the stats of St. James, they are tech-enabled, yes, but only 40% of students use e-learning, but 100% of finance and accounting operations are computerized. They're not human-centric because there's no system specifically for student services, and this is disintegrated in perspective. For example, the system of the health or the clinic is different from the system of guidance and counseling, whereas this ought to be shared services provided to the students. There's no iterative improvement, meaning it's a little bit disintegrated in terms of data management for students. The admissions data is separate from the student data and there's no visibility. It's very difficult to measure student learning because you don't really know if a student understands what's happening in the classroom. Yes, there is the grade, but what is the grade really reflective of? If a student is in the classroom physically, does that mean the student is learning? We assume yes, but do we really know? And again, there's no faculty or HR system, and there's no intentional strategy for St. James to meet VUCA needs, to differentiate itself among all other schools in the area, and to somehow predict its future. What and where does it want to go? St. James needs to consult the students, the faculty, the department heads, and the administrators regarding its current situation, make recommendations for process improvement, and then decide to invest, do technology investment on how it can meet the goals. Now, this is digital transformation. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a long process, and it takes the entire community to be able to fulfill successful digital transformation. Now, on the right side here, St. James has identified what it wants to fulfill. Notice that these are quantitative measures. I was going through the list of questions. How do you know it's successful? You need to define the measures for yourself. What is your goal, and what does it mean for you to be a successful, digitally transformed university? In this case, St. James says 100% of the teachers should be online ready. 100% of courses should be delivered online. It should improve student engagement by 30%. Online courses should be ready 1 week before the start of the semester, and there has to be 99% reliability for the learning management system. Now, how do you know? How can you measure? You can only measure this if there's that system to actually do the measurement for you, because it's very difficult to have to do all of these things manually. And that's the value that such a system presents. It can be quantified. It's very precise. Aside from the learning management system, I bring your attention to the upper right side of the slide. It has decided to adopt systems also for HR, admissions, planning, and analytics. HR, so you can tie your faculty complement to your student performance and enrollment. Admission, so that you can tie your student performance to your admissions intake. Planning software, so that you can understand where you are and quickly track if you're meeting your targets and your KRAs, and quickly pivot if needed. And then, of course, analytics tools, because you'll have tons of information. Next, the last bullet for this slide. Offer telex services, meaning it can be health, wellness, academic tutorials to all students. I just place randomly 8 to 5. It's really up to St. James if they want it like that. Mental health should be 24/7 available. But I raised the idea of a center for student success. You know, the current practice is you go to the guidance office because you have a concern. You're not performing well. You're an underachiever. But really, we should take and flip that concept and say everybody should be poised for success upon entering to the university. And this Center for Student Success does that. Yes, it's online. There's little support for them because they're in isolation, but the Center for Student Success could actually cater to all the limitations of doing online learning. And this is where all your combined and integrated student services can help. And you remove the stigma that students who go to the guidance office are problematic students or underachievers. How do we create opportunities if our teachers are online ready and are adept at delivering courses online? And if we can deliver all of these courses online, we create the opportunity of offering online short courses to our adult learners. And this is because the pandemic has caused a lot of unemployment, and there may be a quite big market for those who want to upskill. And the best way to do that upskilling for adult learners is really to do it via online courses. They learn by themselves, they learn at the time that they prefer, and it is a little bit more cost effective for them rather than actually enrolling in a degree program. It may also create a new market for other regions, for those seeking degrees. There are some people who would like to study abroad for the experience. There are people who want to be able to experience a multicultural learning, and this is one way to do it. I know some universities have already done this. It's one way to internationalize their university as well. Aside from doing digital transformation, another is a proposal to really revisit the org structure, the higher ed perspective, and our timeframes. So you see, you're moving operations online, and that means you need to revisit your structure. You need somebody to take care of an information system. You need somebody to take care of information security. You need a more vibrant risk management office. And of course, the think tank to do the 20% innovation. More importantly, to all academic leaders in the call, it's really high time that higher ed leaders embrace change, because there's no way, it is what it is. And at the same time, maybe enjoy change as well. I know it's not easy, but embrace and enjoying it probably allows all of us to be learners as well. In terms of timeline, we need to have shorter time frames for our plans. It means having a little bit more frequent evaluation of your strategic targets. I know of a conglomerate that has decided to do this quarterly, mainly because no one knows how long the pandemic will be. No one knows how things will go. So it's good to start thinking of shorter time frames. But doesn't that contradict the idea of resiliency, which means long term, but at the same time, you're telling me you have to plan short term? I think what we know at this point is, number one, we know what we don't know. We know what we cannot control, and that is the pandemic. But we do know we can get data about our operations, and we do know where we can go. You can only decide based on what you can control. And because of that, having the metrics defined for your digital transformation process is very important, because that's your sole basis to say, yes, I will proceed with this, or no, I'll have to take a look and revisit my targets. Again, for leaders, this leads to high quality decisions by which all of the leaders will be judged. First time right. Not all the time, but it's okay. In agile development in IT, you make small increments and then you evaluate it. And I think that's fine. For as long, again, as the metrics you're measuring are correct, then it is easy for you to calibrate and change your mind. If you say, no, this is not for me, then you could go back to the drawing board and say, okay, let's do this again. More importantly, what is right for St. James may not be right for you. If you ask a university, what do you want to do and what is your mission? It is always, I want to offer quality education. But we do know that that gets operationalized in so many different ways. Number one, because of the community we find ourselves in, because of the available resources for all of us, because of our local context. The values of the university will be different. So what may work for one may not necessarily work for the other. That's why I always say you look at the principles. What principle did they follow rather than the actual action that they did? Now, when we move on to digital transformation, there will be threats. Some of you would have probably heard about it. Some of you would have heard that the University of California paid $1 million in ransom because their data was held hostage. Information was leaked online and sold in the dark web. And on the right side of my slide, you see that's the financial statements, operating budget of the University of Michigan. These are things that should not have public visibility, but because of these hackers, they're left with that. It destroys the brand, it destroys the reputation of the university. In the Philippines, you become criminally liable for these things. So it has become a problem. That's why the information officer, the information security officer, and the risk officer are very important elements of the institution. If you do digital transformation, you need to have all of these elements in your operations. They will help you, guide you, and protect you. Some policies that have changed, this is very simple, but they're very important. Some policies that have to be implemented. For example, the use of university emails. They can only be used for business purposes. They cannot be used to open a Spotify account, to log on to Lazada. There's the bounce back sale today of Lazada. That cannot be done because if those systems get compromised and your official email is used, that means the email system of your university also becomes compromised. Next, some universities, in the case of student policies, have removed the failure due to absences because they're not going to check attendance anymore, supporting self-paced and customized learning of students, and to be more lenient with their students who have issues with internet access. Our student handbook also would probably include now cyber-related offenses, which did not exist years ago. In addition, I would like to stress intra and inter higher ed collaboration now because we are all scrambling for resources and there is strength in numbers. One, to build a community where you share what you know, you share what did not work, what did work, and how you proceeded to do it. I think that's very important. Resources, consortia to purchase software, consortia to open up libraries will be very useful. And there cannot be any more silos because if we wish to deliver learner-centered systems, then that means all elements of the university really coming together, designing not from the perspective of the offices, but systems being designed from the perspective of students. Now, there is no silver bullet. You don't take a pill and everything magically appears to be solved. There are many hits and misses, and again, that is fine for as long as you proceed scientifically and measure and put your head above water. You're not struggling, you're managing it because you have data to say this works and this does not work. I proposed a resilient university using digital transformation techniques. A resilient university is tech-enabled, is human-centric, has iterative improvement in place, and has a well thought of innovative practice. For a resilient university to thrive, it needs to revisit the structure, change in perspective of our leaders, and change the time frame of evaluation and strategic plans. Will it be right the first time? Not all the time. Again, it's not all the time. What works for one will not work for the other. But what's next? I think you need to think as much as you can. I think you need to discuss with everybody, with your staff, with your colleagues, with your advisors. But more importantly, you need to act because you simply cannot afford not to act.